So this is going to be an evergreen show, Mike. Evergreen, right?
It's going to be very, very green. Greener than the
Very,
grass in
very
my yard, that's for sure.
Wait, this isn't an eco show, is it?
No, no eco.
All right. Matt Robison, Mike Morton Financial Life Planning, and we're doing something, I don't know, it's slightly different than what we've been doing recently, but it's kind of a back to the future plan, right? What you want to do is kind of a mode of show that we were doing a lot of in 2023. Tell folks what you've got in mind.
Yeah, this is a series, I think we'll call it, Matt, Back to Basics. And I think we might do more of these back to basic episodes where it's really foundational pieces, of the financial planning process. And just reminding the listeners, the viewers, hey, here's what this thing is about, and here's the basic concept. So this one's going to be all about the best way to use your HSA.
Right. And the idea is you can bookmark it. You could, the same thing with you put out a lot of really great free information. You've got your newsletter, you've got your website. And the idea is to have a little bit of a library, but you could bookmark this episode. I've actually done this before with other kinds of podcasts where I go back. I actually did this with your podcast when I had to remind myself, how do I fix the fact that I have too much money, in a not tax preferred account? It's like my target date fund account, and it's invested, but I'm getting too much tax drag. How do I fix that? How do I do the legal money laundering? So I went back to that. So this is a good one to bookmark. So let's get into it. You love HSAs. You love HSAs.
I love HSAs.
So my first question for you is just a really basic one. How jealous is your wife
about HSAs? Well, see, I don't bring it up with her. So that's good. I keep the financial planning stuff, kind of in the back pocket, not out front, Matt.
All right, great. Now, my second question is, what's an HSA?
HSA is a health savings account. And the account word at the end means that it's an account, just like your other ones, your checking, saving, brokerage, 401k. It's an account that you own and you can open. And there's all kinds of rules about it, just like other types of accounts. And health savings accounts are targeted for spending on medical needs. But the reason I love them, Matt, is because the HSA is one of the only accounts where you never pay tax on the dollars. So everywhere else, the government's going to take a slice, right? If you make a gain or you make some money, a salary or a gain, the government's going to take a slice with taxes. And the HSA is one where the dollars you make and use the HSA account will never be taxed. And that's why we love to use them.
In fact, if you remember only one thing, which might well be the case for me from this episode, I think I'm going to make that my early nominee for something to remember, because we talk about all kinds of different accounts, right? IRAs, Roth IRAs, 401ks, 403bs. I don't know. I'm going to make up a bunch of numbers. What's the number that keeps getting repeated in Star Wars? It's like TDX7. Anyway, there are all these accounts out there. And what you just said is, at some point, you've got to pay taxes on all of them, whether it's before or after. But with HSAs, never. Is that right? Never.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah.
All right.
So that's why we love them.
One of the things that jumped out to me also is they're kind of confusing in a way, because they're called health savings accounts. But you're telling me, and I think you told me this before, so, whatever, I'm old. What you're telling me is, much like beer isn't just for breakfast anymore, health savings accounts aren't just for saving for health. What?
That's right.
Wait, tell me more.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, beer for breakfast. So let's talk about beer for breakfast. Oh, no. Wait, savings account. Okay. So
it's another thing you don't tell your wife about. Yeah.
That's correct. Right. We keep that on the side, Matt.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
It's just between me and you.
It's okay. Good news. She doesn't listen to this podcast.
That's correct. Absolutely. So that's right, except they actually do need to be used for medical expenses, but it's the savings part in the middle that we want to really focus on, health savings account. Because 88%, this is a stat, 88% of HSA holders keep their accounts entirely in cash. All right. What I'm telling you is there's a better way to use your HSA by focusing on the long-term savings, still using it for health and medical expenses, but long-term savings rather than immediate uses.
Oh, okay. I think I get it. I think I get it. Probably not. I think I get it. So what you're saying is, especially as you age, you're gonna have some medical expenses. So these accounts give you the opportunity to save and invest that money, and you'll never pay taxes on it. And because dollars are fungible, you'll use it on health eventually.
That's correct. So here's the best way. Let's put it in a nutshell. Here's the best way to use your HSA that you are not doing right now. All right. So the best way to use your HSA is to put in the maximum amount into your HSA every year. All right. There's limits if you have an individual or a family HSA. So put in the maximum amount that you can put in every year. You can top it up just like you can your IRAs. So just make sure you do that. Second point, invest the money. All right. So the money that you have in your HSA, you put in the $8,000 for 2024, and now it's sitting in cash. And I told you 88% of HSAs are sitting in cash. Well, don't be part of that statistic. All right. Invest aggressively, smartly, aggressively, your HSA dollars in the account. And then finally, you want to let those compound and grow for years. Okay. And you want to save your medical receipts, your current ones. And we'll get into that, but you can pay yourself back from your current medical expenses. So the third point is save all your current medical receipts, and you can use the money to pay yourself back in the future.
All right. That was an information dense couple of sentences there, but that's good. There's nothing that this show is about if not density. So,
that's right.
So
overwhelming the listener. That's our whole plan here.
Exactly. You know, one of my friends who has been a longtime NPR reporter explained to me once that there's only so much the ear can hold. But on this show, we're determined to test that proposition.
That's right.
We don't believe it.
We don't believe that.
But let's go back to that. Yeah. Okay. So what you're saying is eventually we're all going to spend a lot of money on medical expenses.
Yeah. But let's start with the first thing. So we had 3 bullet points, right?
Okay.
Contribute the maximum, invest aggressively, and then
just
third, save their seeds.
Ballpark that for me. What is that? Like
so
5K?
The first part, contribute the maximum. It's like this year, it's like $4K for individuals, $8K for families.
Sure. It's always this is evergreen, so that'll change. But just in 2024, that's what it is. All right, cool.
Something around there, and you need again HSAs. I'm not going into the details. In this episode, keeping it kind of the best way to use your HSA. But you have to have a high deductible plan to be eligible for an HSA. So there's some other, things you got to look into. But if you have an HSA, this is the best way to use it. Make sure you contribute the maximum to your HSA. So it's pretty straightforward. Opening the account, you have an account, contribute the max. You can put it in you can just transfer dollars from your brokerage or checking or savings account. Your employer might put in some money. So just double check. Always in the first quarter of the following year, you can look how many contributions were made. So in the first quarter, 2025, you can look back in 2024, see how much was contributed, and then you can what we call top it up, and make sure you get up to that maximum amount. See. So that's the first thing that I would always recommend. So that's the first thing is contribute the maximum. But you slipped something very important in there, which is you can only do this if you have a high deductible health insurance plan. So check. Actually, fun fact, I know this is evergreen. So this is real Back to the Future. Like we might put ourselves in a time machine and go back and revisit this in a year. Fun story. Actually, by fun, I mean... Is it fun?
Well, it's like details, it's details. My wife and I just changed our health insurance coverage. And we now... anyway, we're about to try an experiment in this. So we're going to have an interesting... A year from now, I really, really want to revisit this and see how it went.
So you're getting a high deductible health, you're switching into a high deductible health plan halfway through the year. So quick listening point.
No. It's on the cycle. It's on the cycle for her employer.
Okay. So at the end of the year.
No, this is at the beginning of the year of the health year
So a lot of people will switch during open enrollment, right? During the third quarter of the year is when you might switch. So as long as you have a high deductible plan, at the last month of the year, you can contribute the full amount for the entire year into your HSA. All right. So I'll say that again. So if you switch during open enrollment, October, November, and you have a high deductible health plan starting December 1, you can contribute the full maximum for the entire year of 2024. All right. Now, that's not true the other way around. If you switch off of a high deductible health plan somewhere during the year, then you're prorated how much you can do throughout the year. So a couple of details to look up. Again, this is, Google this stuff, make sure you get the right dollar amounts and all that stuff. But contribute the maximum to your HSA when you can.
Contribute the max. All right. So the read back here is make sure you qualify, but then if you can have an HSA, contribute the maximum and rewind a little bit if you want to just remind yourself of the details of, can I top up at the first quarter of the next year? Or did I switch during open enrollment? There are opportunities to make sure you have contributed the maximum. All right, let's get to your next bullet though, which is
invest.
You want to invest aggressively. You've talked about this before. It's not enough to just have the account. You have to actually invest. I promise you, this has not occurred to me. How do you invest the money in your HSA?
So HSAs, they'll be different at different locations, right? There's Lively Me, there's Fidelity, there's Schwab, there's all kinds of places where you might have your HSA bank. I mean, it depends on your employer. Will probably open this up for you a lot of times. If not, I do recommend, Fidelity or Lively Me. They're pretty good spots currently for HSAs. It's always changing every year. So you have an account at one of these brokerages or places that hold the HSA, you log in just like you do your other accounts, and there will be buttons and opportunities to invest. All right. So all of these places will have like how to invest or invest my money, but you have to go and do that. Okay. I told you 88% of money is sitting in cash because when you contribute the money, it's sitting in cash. They're not going to do anything with it for you. And this is true even every time you contribute. All right. So when you make a contribution to your HSA, either your employer makes a lump sum, couple $1,000, or you top it up for a couple $1,000, then you got to log in, click to invest that money. So make sure you do that, a couple times a year, or when you make a large contribution, go ahead and make sure that you invest that money. Don't leave it sitting in cash.
I'm gathering that one of the key points you're making in this episode is that is important, because you're trying to encourage people to think of these things as a long-term account, not I put in $5,000 this year, I'm going to spend it this year, because you're saying contribute the maximum. You may not use it this year, but you're going to use it eventually. And so if it's like all going to be used in the same year, investing matters a little less. If it's going to be used in 10 years, investing matters a lot.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
Okay.
That's exactly right. And I might have buried the lead on a couple of points. One is we're thinking about this as a long-term saving retirement investing account. No longer just, hey, I'm spending it on current medical needs. All right. So you got to flip your mindset. That's why I say this is the best way to be using your HSA as a long-term investing retirement type of account where you'll never pay tax on the contributions, the compounding, the investing returns when you withdraw the money.
So I get point one, I get point two. Let's hit point three, because I think there's details and there's a lot of devil in the details with this. Yeah. You're saying you've got to save all your receipts. So wait, if I have a medical expense now, I can save the receipt and I can pay for it now and pay myself back. Wait, explain what all that means.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So there are rules about what you can use HSA money for. It needs to be for qualified medical expenses. And we can go through some of them later, but it's really a pretty broad range. I mean, they really want this money, the government has designed this money to be used on your medical needs. It could be dental, vision, health, all kinds of stuff. So really pretty broad. But one of the things that's included is you can reimburse yourself. You can pay yourself back for medical expenses that you had while you had an HSA. So you have to have the HSA open. And once you got the HSA open, if you have medical expenses that you did not use the HSA for, you can always pay yourself back for those. So here's the simple way of thinking of it. Say I got a $1,000 medical bill, this year. Well, I could use $1,000 for my HSA. Or if I can, I'll use $1,000 for my checking account, just pay for it and leave the $1,000 in my HSA. Now, over 10 years, that $1,000 or 10 or 20 years, that $1,000 might grow to $5,000, compounds a couple of times. So now my $1,000 turns to $5,000, I can pay myself back the original $1,000 and I've made $4,000 of tax-free money.
Wow. I said wow there, and then I'm like, well, $4,000, that doesn't change someone's life, but it's not just that. It's every year you do it.
Yeah.
That's why you want to have people contribute the maximum.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So this third point is go ahead and say, and I'm not saying save every single receipt, $5 or $10 here, but the bigger stuff, a few $100s, or, you have some medical procedures, it's a few $1,000s that you have to pay out of pocket. So whatever you have to pay, not what's covered by your insurance, but whatever you pay out of pocket for qualified medical expenses, take a picture of the receipt, make it really simple. You got a receipt, that says you had this thing, take a picture and just save it in a digital folder. And then I also recommend just having a small spreadsheet to keep track, and then just throw it in the spreadsheet, right. This date, this amount. So it takes you an extra 5 minutes, before you throw away the thing that you paid, just take a picture of it, put it into some folder, digital folder, and then just make a small spreadsheet. So that's what I recommend doing. So over the years, you'll see it adding up. Like, geez, now, I could pay myself $5,000 or $10,000. And you'll see that adding up over time, that you can always reimburse yourself as your HSA compounds tax-free.
Is a good summary of all of this, you want people to have an HSA, contribute the maximum to the HSA, but not use the HSA now.
You got it, man. That's exactly right. Yeah, that's why we invest aggressively. Yeah.
All right. So when, this is going to sound like a Spaceballs routine, when is now not now anymore? When is now later? Like, right. Okay, I go through this process, right? And it's like each year I'm saving. When do I stop doing that and start doing what economists call dis-saving? Because you can't just say spending. Isn't dis-saving the stupidest word? Dis-saving. Yeah. When do I start tapping into this bad boy?
I'm going to start using that with my clients. Look forward to the dis-saving.
Yeah. Would you dis-save me $1,000 for my fee?
Right. Exactly. There you go. So here's another stat for you, Matt. In retirement, 65-year-olds retiring 2023, so this is last year, will spend an average of $157,000 on healthcare and medical expenses throughout retirement. So a person retiring is spending on average about $150,000 on medical expenses during their retirement. So that's a good number to start with. If your HSA is getting somewhere around $150,000, maybe you might consider stop contributing to it or slowing down, or if you're reaching that point and you're not yet 65 and you're going to start using it, or you're not going to start using it. So that's a ballpark number to just have in mind, 150,000 that I'd start with. The other thing is, I know your next question is going to be like, well, what if it grows too big? This is what everybody asks. Like, what if it grows too big and, I can't spend it all? I don't have those medical expenses. The cool thing about the HSA, and this is why I really can promote this way of using the HSA, is because at worst case, you take the money out for a non-qualified medical expense, and then you pay taxes on that money, exactly the same as your 401k. All right. So in retirement, your 401k, you haven't yet paid taxes on it. You want to spend that money. You want to dis-save that money. Then you pay taxes on it when you take it out. So the worst case, geez, I have a couple $100,000 in my HSA. This is great. I got lots of medical expenses. I'm paying myself back, but I still have some money left over. All right. You can take it out and just pay the regular tax rate.
And what if, I'm trying to find the most delicate, euphemistic, non-upsetting to our listeners way of saying this. What if you die way before you think you're going to? See how I did that? Yeah. That is podcast mastery. There
you go.
But seriously, it's because it sounds like the answer is keep this process going until you retire, because at that point you're no longer saving at the same rate, and it's time to start dis-saving. But I could see a variant of your question where it's like, well, what if I have too much? Being, what happens to this if it becomes part of my estate?
Yeah. So that does have bad news. It gets taxed all at once. All right. So whoever inherits it has to pay the taxes, or I think the estate might have to pay the taxes, but it comes out as a lump sum. So if you did have 150,000 in there, It comes out as a lump sum and you pay it as income. I think it's to the beneficiary would have to report it as income. So that is bad news if that were to happen. Yeah, that is a downside to doing this.
But on the other hand, while that could be a big tax bill, you always remind me that you're still way, way ahead. You've still been saving this money all along. It's not like in the grand scheme of things, you're not, I'm using a lot of double negatives. You're still coming out way ahead in terms of dollars that you have saved. I mean, this is still savings and investment. And if the worst thing that happens to you is you save and then you invest for 20 or 30 years and you have a massive amount of growth, then you've got a tax bill, but you've had all that growth as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. It's a good problem to have. Let's put it that way. You know, the beneficiary is going to suddenly have 150,000 and have to pay taxes on it. So that's, a good problem to have. But to be honest, right? Like it is true. If you knew ahead of time, then I wouldn't design the HSA. There's, you could save it in your brokerage account and probably from a tax perspective come out ahead. But that's, impossible to predict. So I still think the HSA is a really, really great way to go.
And for most people, most of the time, this strategy is going to have them coming out way, way ahead. So, okay. Just to kind of round out a couple other details. So you quickly hit the list of major qualified expenses. You want to just hit those real fast.
Yeah. I mean, in retirement, you can use it for Medicare premiums, any co-pays, co-insurance, anything that you have to pay out of pocket, all the deductible stuff. You can use it for long-term care insurance premiums.
Wow. That's actually huge.
Yeah. So you could get, again, if it grows to a few 100,000 and you're like, geez, I'm still pretty healthy. I mean, you could grab long-term care and spend it on those premiums, which can be pretty pricey. So that's
an easy shortcut right there. It's like, if you think it's outgrowing your needs, it's like, well, here's something you're probably going to need.
Yeah. Yeah. So you could spend it earlier on that long-term care insurance. Which is pretty awesome. I told you, like dental, vision, hearing. So, I mean, it's pretty broad, right? It's not just, medical, but a lot of other stuff. Prescriptions, nursing home costs, medical equipment, all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, you just kind of Google, right? What qualified medical expenses for HSA. You're going to get this long list. They try to make it very broad. There's a lot you can use it for.
All right. Let's bottom line this, because I think we're rounding the bend toward the end. First, before we hit the end, any other really important key points that you want to hit before we get out?
Yeah, the one thing I told you to contribute the maximum to your HSA. Well, I wouldn't do that with your first dollars that you're saving. Okay, so if you look at your total salary and you're like, okay, Mike said do my maximum HSA. I've got 8,000 I can save this year. I'm going to do it all in my HSA. It probably doesn't fall at the very top of where you should save money. Okay.
I see.
So I think the 401ks, you can often get like free matching. So you want to save there and get the free money. Like if your employer is going to match 4%. So 401ks, I would save there first. And I'd look at Roth IRAs ahead of HSAs in a lot of ways too. They're sort of neck and neck, but I like the Roth IRAs. So,
well, especially if you're early in the, savings cycle and you can pay your taxes while your taxes are low.
Exactly.
So younger folks, it's a different waterfall than older folks.
Yep. Yeah. So I would just be aware of that. Like, just because I said save the maximum, make sure you have the savings. That's the only last thing I would kind of put in there.
Awesome. All right. So the bottom line read back, have an HSA with a couple of small caveats, contribute the maximum to your HSA. Don't necessarily spend the HSA now. Take advantage of investing your HSA and letting it grow, let that growth compound. And finally, save those receipts in a digital folder of some kind with a little spreadsheet. So you've got them so that you can dissave later. Right?
That's it, man. That's it. Perfect summary.
Cool. All right. Well, This was pretty tight stuff, and if nothing else, people learned a new useless word.
Exactly. That's right, Matt.
All right. For Mike, I'm Matt. We will see you next time.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for joining us on Financial Life Planning. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to and rate the podcast on Apple iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. It makes a massive difference. If you have a comment or question, please email me, mike@mortonfa.com. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. This recording is for informational purposes only and should not be considered for investment advice. Opinions expressed are as of the date of recording. Such opinions are subject to change. I cannot guarantee the accuracy or completeness of the data presented here.